Hello Facebook, welcome back to another installment of Easy Weeknight Cooking. And what are we doing tonight? We are doing Greek casserole. Now this is a very good casserole that actually I would not say that it is authentically Greek, but it does use an awful lot of ingredients that are quite beloved in Greek culture. So we are going to be, of course, using our Greek seasoning as the seasoning of our casserole base, and we're also going to be using it to flavor our meat with. Now you can use just about any kind of meat with this casserole. By the way, the recipe is up right there, and so you can use any meat you like. It would be fantastic with a bit of lamb in there, in chunks of course. And tonight we're actually going to be using chicken because it's easy to find for the whole 9 yards. So what are you going to need? You're going to need, of course, your chicken, a small zucchini, grape tomatoes. These things are very yummy and quite wonderful. They add a beautiful dimension to this. Honestly, you can use just about any kind of tomato you like as long as it's in chunks. I like using the grape tomatoes because the presentation is just so wonderful and it's gorgeous. Remember, we feast with our eyes as well as our mouth. We are also, of course, going to need feta cheese. Ooh, yummy. Feta cheese is a very strong cheese. It's very vinegary, rather salty, and it is a goat cheese, but it is quite yummy. It doesn't have that earthy taste that a lot of your other cheeses like blue cheese might have. It's very it's actually got more of a vinegary taste to it. We are going to need some sort of leafy green. Tonight, we are going to use spinach. Why? It's easily available and actually used in quite a few Greek dishes. My favorite being spanakopita, which also uses a lot of feta. Yummy. Anyway, so we're also, if you choose, Kalamata olives are a gorgeous addition to this flavor-wise. You can also use chickpeas in here. Basically, go ahead and mix up some of the ingredients. If you don't happen to have something, you can go ahead and substitute something else. Yellow crickneck squash does wonderfully in exchange for your zucchini. So we are going to be needing those ingredients, plus we're going to be needing something for your soup base, if you will. We're going to be doing a cream sauce for this one, and my favorite to use to make a cream sauce is actually heavy whipping cream. You take about 2 cups of that, you reduce it to about 1/3 of its total, but make sure you've got your garlic and your, we're also going to need garlic. Always gonna go ahead and put your garlic and Greek seasoning in that and reduce it down. All that flavor is so yummy. Now you can also use a white sauce, or if you don't happen to have either one of those and you're in a big hurry, cream of chicken soup. Yummy. So, but if you're watching the salt, go ahead and go for the white sauce or the cream sauce. If you're watching your carbs, go for the cream sauce all the way, baby. So why don't we get started? This is going to be a lot of fun. So what we're going to need first, of course, is meat. And, well, if you're vegetarian, go ahead and use chickpeas instead. No big deal. Now, of course, I am human, so I totally forgot to grab an onion on my way out. This batch is going to be without onion. Oh, boo-hoo. Oh, well, I think I might live. We'll find out. You'll see next week. So, 1 pound of meat. You're going to cube this stuff up, and then you're going to saute it right over here. So, here we go. Bring that chicken on out, toss that away. I've got myself a washcloth right here because I'm that way. So go ahead and tonight I am using boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I am a big fan of the dark meat, definitely. I find that the chicken thighs just have a lot more flavor to them. They have a lot of just really great stuff to them. They've got a little bit more fat than your chicken breast. They tend to stay more tender and they tend to stay less dry. Now, if you're watching the fat, go ahead and go for chicken breasts or some other kind of lean meat. You can do this with just about any kind of meat that you like. Or like I said, if you're vegetarian, use chickpeas. Very authentic. So, matter of fact, if you've ever had hummus, you've had chickpeas, otherwise known as garbanzo beans. So go ahead and just cut this up into cubes. As you can see, I'm folding the chicken thigh over in half, cutting widthwise, then I turn it around and cut lengthwise so that I get chunks with, you know, as little work as possible. That's always nice, right? So, like I said, that's about a pound of meat here. That's usually about 2 to 3 chicken thighs. So I'm folding these guys like so, cutting this way, and then turning the pieces around and cutting this way. Then what we're going to do is we're going to throw these into a saute pan with a little bit of oil or butter, of course. Always, and about half a teaspoon of Greek seasoning because we need our flavor there, right? And we're going to want our flavor to go ahead and sink right into that chicken while the chicken starts cooking. Now, we're going to be pretty much fully cooking the chicken. I prefer to do that or cook it almost all the way through. That way we don't have to worry whether or not we're going to poison ourselves by the time this is out of the oven. And by the way, by this time, go ahead and turn your oven to between 350 and 400, depending on your oven. You're going to cook this for between 30 minutes and 16 minutes, depending on, you know, the size of your pan, how slow your oven cooks, etc. This time, my oven's at 400. We're going to actually see how that does by the time this Greek casserole is out of there. So, turn on your pan to high, grab out your Greek seasoning, grab this, and guess what? I forgot to grab another knife. Maybe I ought to do that. Just leave it. So I am going to get myself about a tablespoon of butter and throw it in my pan as it heats up. That way I make sure that my chicken doesn't burn on the bottom. Now we do want this to brown. Why? We want the Maillard reaction to be going on because Maillard reaction is always flavor. Now what is Maillard reaction? Maillard reaction at its most basic level is browning, otherwise known as caramelization. Now it's going to taste differently depending on if there are any sugars there to be caramelized or not. On browning with things like chicken, it just causes an extra depth of flavor that we all love. I know myself, I really love the crunchy bits on the brown bits on like a stir fry, or I love the crunchy bits on a bit of roast best, absolutely, and that's Maillard. So there we go, we are melting. And let's throw this stuff in there. Get a good sizzle on. Okay, spread that evenly onto the bottom of your pan, and I'm going to put this over in my sink full of bleach water. Back here. There we go. As you can tell, I do like to make sure things are pretty clean when I'm working. No cross-contamination, thank you. So, while we are waiting for some browning to happen over right there, I'm going to turn my light down so I can see you guys. There we go. Ah, I can see. Oh. So while we are waiting for some browning to happen over here, I'm going to go ahead and cut up some of our vegetables. Now, we need zucchini. We need some sort of leafy green. By the way, kale and Swiss chard are wonderful in this stuff. I'll bet you mustard greens or just about any green leafy top to anything that you like to use. Wonderful. So, 1 small zucchini, and this guy is fresh from the garden. You can tell. Oh my gosh, I just got this a couple days ago from my mom, and there is nothing like fresh zucchini. So this is small enough, as you can see, that it's going to make nice little medallions. If much bigger than this around, you're going to want to cut it in half so that you can get half these rather than really huge medallions. Try to keep your zucchini size about the same. That way it cooks through in about the same amount of time. Okay. And 1 more. And then I'm going to stir that chicken because it sounded great. Ooh, we got some browning on the bottom of that one. Oh yeah, I love that smell. And we do have some really nice browning going on here. Just try to make sure everything gets turned over and you have good contact with the bottom of the pan. Smells like fried chicken. Oh. I wonder why. Okay. Zucchini goes off to the side. And next, you're going to need a little over 2 cups of your green leafies. Now, this is after it's been cut. So a couple of good-sized handfuls will be just fine. I like to wrap my spinach up like so and then cut because it's so much easier to handle at that point. So crossways on that roll of spinach, all the way down, and then 1 to 2 cuts along the length of the roll will do just fine. And that will get you a really nice chop. Now you could go ahead and do this so that you've got, really big pieces, but no, your cream base is not really going to be very happy with that. So it won't penetrate well. And we do want that to penetrate well. I need to go ahead and flip this over a little bit more. I'm going to turn this down. This is smelling really good. Okay, and I need a little bit more than that for the 2 cups. So, once again, fold these over so you kind of roll them up. And crossways, and then 1 to 2 chops lengthwise, and that's good. Put that aside. Next, get out your grape tomatoes. And what are we doing here? I want you guys to have a really good look at this. So, there we go. Let's see, I believe you can, not quite. Okay. I'm going to do a down periscope here so you can see a little bit better. So, when you're doing your grape tomatoes, aren't those things really gorgeous? I love it. Now, these, you can cut them in half or thirds. I think I'd rather do half right now because, that did not look good. So, I think I'd rather do half right now because we're going to be putting these this way on top of our casserole. And if you try to cut these in thirds, I think you're going to have your slices a little bit too thin, and you're not going to get that brown skin the way that we're really going to want. So go ahead and cut those in half. And it looks like this is done, so I'm going to take this off heat. There we go. Gorgeous. You know what? I forgot to put my Greek seasoning on that. I better stir that in, huh? Just a little. Alrighty, now our vegetables are all ready to go and staged in a gorgeous little array. So I'm going to do the periscope on you guys and push you back just a little bit. I can see you. I can see me. Oh my. So, Greek seasoning. We're gonna, oh my gosh, you gotta see this, guys. Look at all that gorgeous, gorgeous browning. Seriously, that's gonna equal flavor. Lots and lots of flavor. So, about a half a teaspoon. There we go. Yep, there you go. That's about a half teaspoon. Sprinkle it all over. And now, give that a stir. Oh, normally there's onions in here too. Oh yes. And I'm gonna just let that sit for a while. That way we can get all that gorgeous fond up off the bottom of this and into our casserole. Now, some of you may be going, okay, what is fond? Really? Seriously? Come on, speak English. And fond is those brown bits that get stuck to the bottom of a pan. And if you've ever gone through and picked the bits off at the bottom of the turkey pan at Thanksgiving and gone, oh, that's so good. That, my friends, is fond. And the reason why it's so good is my yard. So I'm just kind of scraping up the brown bits on the bottom. Charred bits are one thing, not a really great idea. Brown bits, oh, gorgeous, yummy. And there we go. Getting that all up. Yes. Now, there's still a little bit left, so I want that to soak. And I'm going to check this in the oven. Oh, yum. Okay, glasses need to defog for a minute. Alrighty, so what do we need next? We need, first of all, a bowl. And then we'll need this. Actually, why don't we go ahead and start with this first? And then we're going to go ahead and take care of our cream sauce, because this is really a layered dish, and layering the dish is really where it gets its wonderfulness, and presentation can be everything there. So what we're going to do is I like to start off with zucchini and the greens on the very bottom. That way you don't get a lot of your meaty taste stuck to the bottom. Instead, you've got all that meat and your cream sauce just soaking through your layers into these vegetables on the bottom, and you don't get things sticking this bad to the bottom. So go ahead and layer in about half of your zucchini. There we go. About half your zucchini, 9 by 9, and about half of your spinach. Then, all that good stuff in here, go ahead and give that a stir. And put about half of your meat in there. Actually, you know what? Go ahead and get all of your meat in there in this layer, because you're going to be doing another layer of vegetables on top of this. And you can tell what I'm talking about. The brown bits on the bottom, you can tell this is not burned, but there is some really great flavor stuck to the bottom of that pan. So give yourself an even layer of meat. There we go. And then we're going to go into our cream sauce, and I'll be right back. Okay, how do we do this cream sauce? I hear you asking. That's a very good question. We're going to do it a lot like one might do a roux. Okay, what's a roux? A roux is a mixture of flour and butter, or some sort of a fat. That is really the base of any white cream sauce. So to that, once you've sauteed your butter and you sauteed your flour, you saute your flour because otherwise your sauce comes out tasting like dough instead of a sauce. So you're going to want to go ahead and saute your butter with your flour until you kind of brown the flour a little bit. Then you're going to add some milk until it thickens, and add more if you need to, etc., to make a cream sauce. And that's basically how you make a cream sauce. The casserole in the oven over here, you did use a cream sauce, and I will show you that in a minute. Meanwhile, the Cheater's cream sauce, other than creamy chicken soup, uses whole cream. 2 cups worth. And guess what? Go. So we're going to start off with our cream. There's 1 cup. And there's 2 cups. Put that aside. Turn it on about high. We're going to use another 1/2 teaspoon of yield Greek seasoning. Go ahead and throw it right on in there. There you go. And now is the time you get out the garlic press. And if you do not have garlic, if you do not have a garlic press, you can actually mince your garlic if you do not have a press. If you don't have garlic, garlic powder will work just fine. Probably no more than a 1/2 teaspoon. And we're looking for 1 large clove. If you're like my family, 1 1/2. There is a good amount of garlic in that Greek seasoning if you've never used it before. So, go ahead and I forgot to clean out my garlic press last time. I just used it about 20 minutes ago. Okay, right on into the cream. You guys don't want to come on over here. I can tell. Alrighty. Let's give you guys a little bit more height here. And give you a good bird's eye view. There we go. So, as you can see here, we're using a wide, shallow pan for this. Why are we doing that? Because when you're making cream sauce with real cream, you need to reduce the cream, which actually what you're doing is you're using the tool of evaporation to make that cream just a lot thicker. And in order to do that, you need more surface area on your pan between the cream and the air in order to evaporate quickly. And so we've got this on high heat right now. I've just put in my spices and my garlic. And at this point, we're going to just kind of mix this up a little bit. A whisk is always a good friend for that. And I'm going to try to scrape up some of those little bits that were stuck to the bottom of the pan that didn't want to release when I was doing other things. So, now at this point, we are just going to kind of leave this be over high heat and let it just kind of get friendly until it starts boiling. Now, normally you don't want to boil milk, right? Why are we doing this with cream? Seriously, because cream is a little different animal than milk is that way. When you're reducing cream, okay, now we're boiling. We're starting to boil over here, so I'm going to reduce my heat just a little bit. That way we don't boil over. Now, cream does, for some reason, I think it's the fat content, does not burn nearly as easily as milk does. And I need to reduce that even further. If it starts trying to boil over, what you're going to do is you're going to actually lift the pan up off the heat. And so as you can tell, I'm whisking this pretty actively right now. It can go just a little further. And so you want to keep an eye on this. Absolutely. It will boil over on you and make a big mess if you don't. So keep an eye on this. Make sure it's bubbling all the time. And what that's going to do with something with as much surface area as this does, it's going to create a lot of evaporation across the top of your cream. And that means that we are boiling the water out of it to make a really great cream sauce. So go ahead and I'm going to turn this back up. Go ahead and scrape down the sides of your pan. Get all your spices back in there. Make sure you don't get a film going on that's going to be lumpy later, you know, that kind of thing. Okay. So actually moving it pretty constantly is not going to be a bad thing at all. Definitely can do that. And just going to want to make sure that instead of floating on the top all the time, the spices actually go back into the liquid. That way they give off those wonderful flavors into your liquid, not into the air. I think I can turn this back up a little bit. There we are. Now this will take, you know, probably 5, maybe 10 minutes. If you really love what this kind of stuff does for you, then you can make a really big batch of just unflavored cream sauce, reduced cream, and then thaw it out. Put it in the freezer in portions and thaw it out later. Absolutely. And if you're really busy, you're on a low carbohydrate diet or something like that, you really want your creamy casseroles. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous way to do it. Now, if you have no time and, you know, carbs and stuff like that are not an issue, salt is not an issue, go ahead and use your cream of chicken soup, but you're going to want to go ahead and thin it to a pourable consistency so that it'll settle down between the different layers of your casserole. And go ahead and thin it out with milk, and it goes really well that way. Now, I do want this kind of boiling pretty actively, but I don't want it boiling over. So that's why you saw me take the temperature and then put it back up and then put it back up and then put it back up. It was getting out of hand earlier, and but then it got to the point where it was not boiling enough. And what we're waiting for here is for the cream to get so that when you're putting the whisk or your spoon or whatever you're using to stir this with through it, it leaves streaks regularly and deeper and relatively deep streaks, so that you have just a very saucy, creamy, saucy kind of texture instead of something really runny. You don't want straight milk for this. You want something that'll thicken up for you. And when this is done, we're going to add just a teeny bit of flour to it to stabilize it for the oven. Because when cream is made of a lot of fats, And in a prolonged cook like this, those fats melt and they separate. So this is starting to get where I want it. Not quite. Like I said earlier, this will reduce by about 1/3. Let's go ahead and turn that off. We need the Jeopardy theme song. Okay, guys, play it in your head for me. We are starting to get there. It's getting slightly harder to put the whisk through this cream, which is a good thing. I'm going to bring the temperature down just a little bit more. I'm going to change out implements real quick. Woo! Woo! Okay. It's not quite, let me see here. There we go. Not quite as thick as I'd like. When I put this through it like that, I should see more of a valley in this than I'm seeing for longer. As you can see, it's still pretty thin. But now is a great time to put in a little bit of that milk. Or, I'm sorry, not milk, that flour. Now, if you're low carb, a little bit of flax meal goes a long way here. Flax meal and coconut flour will help stabilize this really well. So, not much flour, just barely enough to get along the top, just like so. Definitely less than 1/4 cup. And just go ahead and whisk that in. I'd say, probably about 1 to 2 tablespoons of flour for this. And with the heat, we ought to see it thicken up really quick. Now, the flour will help keep it from separating because fats do that. And there we go. They are starting to get much thicker. You can see how it's reacting to the whisk. It's pooling on both sides. Yeah. Okay, we are thickened to our heart's desire. Look at that. Definitely thicker. Quite definitely thicker. Okay, what's next? I'm going to go ahead and back you guys up a little bit. There we go. Back to this station. There we go. And coming back over here, we're going to move these aside. And at this point, you know what I forgot to put in here right away? No. I forgot to sprinkle it with feta. Now, feta cheese you can get in brick form or you can get it in crumble form. Brick form actually when it crumbles, it crumbles really interesting. It's not a really soft cheese like ricotta, but it's not hard like Parmesan either. It's a little drier, but it's still kind of sticky. So anyway, if you get it in brick form, go ahead and just crumble a bunch up beforehand. And because it's a lot easier to sprinkle once it's been crumbled. So crumble that on over the top of your meat. Now remember, you've got a layer of, and you'll crumble about 2 ounces over your meat. You've got a layer of zucchini and you've got a layer of your leafy greens, then you've got your meat right in the middle. Okay, now we are going to take about half of our cream sauce. There we go. And layer it over there. Go ahead and spread it around a little. And go ahead and add a little bit more in there. If you end up adding about a third of it at this stage, it's no big deal. It actually works just fine because we're going to go ahead and pour the rest of it over the top just before we put on the tomatoes and the rest of the feta. So go ahead and grab your zucchini and go ahead and layer that in there. Now this is a really fun thing to go ahead and set up a couple of days beforehand if you're a meal prepper. And it just makes it so easy to be able to just take it out of the fridge and slap it into the oven. And just make sure that you don't do it too far ahead or else your leafy greens aren't going to be all that happy. Okay. You see how you can still see some of the chicken and that kind of thing in there? That's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. So, and that is why it wasn't a horrible thing to use about 2/3 of your cream mixture before you got the rest of your vegetables in. Go ahead and pour that on in there. There we go. Don't want to miss out on any of that flavor. Nope, 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 nope. There we go. Ha ha ha. Yes. Now is the pretty part. Now remember, if you're like me when I was a teenager, it's like, okay, who cares what it looks like? Just feed me. Remember, you also feast with your eyes. Your family will absolutely love you for making sure something is aesthetically pleasing as well as smelling and tasting good. So go ahead and give yourself a thin layer of feta. And now, my lovelies, it's time for all these gorgeous tomatoes. Go ahead and place them cut side down because we want to make sure those tomato juices actually filter down sooner or later. And the tops are going to look really gorgeous once they've been browned in the oven because when we're done putting these on top, what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit more feta on there. Then we're going to put it in the oven for between half an hour and an hour, depending on how thick your casserole is. If you've just really poured it on, it's going to take longer. If you've poured it on in a smaller container, it's going to take longer for the heat pulse of the oven to actually get to the center. And if it's in a wide, shallow pan, it's not going to take as long. So now, for the rest of our feta. And guys, this always looks so gorgeous. I don't even know what it reminds me of, but it's just beautiful. There we go. Get in there. Now, the other thing we can do here, where'd it come? Aha. Kalamata olives. Wonderful things. Bear with me for just a second. Had to drain those puppies. Kalamata olives are Greek olives, and they're a very, very pungent olive. It's definitely got a real bite to it, and it is just a gorgeous, gorgeous flavor if you love the Greek. So I'm gonna dot this one with a few Kalamata olives as well. And there you go. Isn't that wonderful? It looks awesome. Absolutely awesome. What's more, you're gonna love what comes out of the oven. Oh yeah! Okay guys, there you go. Now this one definitely had a little bit more in the way of juice, but you can see, isn't that just absolutely gorgeous? It smells fantastic. Now this one used the white sauce recipe. Oh gosh, let me see if I can remember the whole thing right off. Probably about 2 tablespoons of butter, no more than 1/4 cup of flour. And you go ahead and melt the butter, brown the flour in the butter, mix it all up in the bottom of your hot pan. Then pour little by little milk in there and whisk it. You're going to be pouring more and more milk until it is the consistency that you like. And of course, you know, if you're going to be doing something like this, you're going to be putting your spices in there, your garlic and your spices in there when you're browning your butter, especially if you're using fresh garlic. Go ahead and put your fresh garlic in there when you're browning your butter for this one back here. And then when you're starting to add your milk, add your spices. That, my friends, makes a really gorgeous white sauce. Salt and pepper to taste, obviously, but you can use that or this cream sauce that I just showed you for Alfredo, for a cheddar cheese sauce. Adding cheddar cheese to it is absolutely wonderful. And honestly, with the cream sauce, the whole cream makes a better cheese sauce, in my opinion, because it just heightens the taste of the cheddar a whole lot more. Anyway, so from our kitchen to yours, we have great casserole. This is a wonderful make ahead. You can go ahead and swap out ingredients as you like. And so definitely vegetarian as well as non-vegetarian options here. Low carb, low salt. Hey, who can ask for more? Keep things tasty, guys, and I will see you next